Say, I won't tell Ajax because that'll just give him a bigger head. He already thinks he's cute. So.
Well, good morning, everyone. We'll get started. Annie, take it away.
All right. I have myself, Annie Cathy, Adrian Beck, Bradley Seaman, Brian West, Deshane Barnett, John Hart, Kayla Talbert, Sarah Bell, Shane Stack, Violet Plummer, Martin Kitston, MCAT, Ross Miller, did I miss anybody else out there?
No, thank you. And I was also getting Bradley Applegate and Bradley Seaman confused. I didn't know Ryan's name was Bradley, so okay. Yeah, so public comment on items not on the agenda. I don't see any, and we don't have a consent agenda, so Deshane and Bradley Applegate, you're up.
Yeah, I'm actually going to let B-Rad talk about the work that we need to do on our van.
And B-Rad is not Ryan. I'm just messing that. The whole Applegate thing is really messing with me today. So yeah.
But that is a really awesome background.
It's a fabulous background. Oh.
You're muted. You're muted, B-Rad. Just wanted to say B-Rad.
B-Rad is fun.
B-Rad. I could go by B-Rad. This is better than the messy background and clutter in my home office. So I'm glad you appreciate it. Anyhow, we have this van that the DPHHS purchased for us. They gave us money and we got a Mercedes Sprinter 2016 and got it upfitted. It was initially funded with HIV grant money, but because it is now property of the county, we can use it for whatever we want. We've used it extensively for outreach for flu shot clinics, for HIV testing. It's gone to a lot of COVID related activities, both doing home vaccines as well as doing COVID testing. It's really helping us serve the remote parts of our community and getting out and meeting people where they are. I really believe that this is part of the future of public health and outreach and the work that we're doing. And one of the limitations we currently have is it has one battery in the back that's wired to power all the electricity. So these have an inverter. So we have AC plugs so someone could plug a laptop or a printer. It's got a vaccine refrigerator. The battery is inadequate to power the vaccine refrigerator for long enough to function safely. So we've consulted a certified electrician company, and they have a bid that we would like to get signed, approved. And what they're going to do is put enough battery power in the back of the van so that we would be able to have it unplugged and have everything fully running for at least 24 hours. And we should be able to plug it in and get a recharge overnight. And that's what we're hoping to get. And I think you can see the cost is $12,103. I'm happy to answer any questions or share any more information. I don't know what else you need to hear.
So Bradley, what are some of the electrical functions that happen in the back of this van? You mentioned all that testing. It sounds, and I'm totally psyched for this. I'm just curious because I like such mechanical things.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we have LED lights when we're in there that we need to use. It's got some propane and electric combined resources. It has a separate refrigerator because when we're doing research in the field, this is not only our workspace, but it's also our break space. So it's got a refrigerator. So if someone wanted to bring like a mayonnaise sandwich lunch and don't want to have a call from me about food poisoning cases, then they can put that in the refrigerator. There's also a water heater. Hot water is available, which is an important part of the nursing process when we're working with patients. There's the vaccine refrigerator, like I mentioned. And then there's different plugs. Sometimes people have different coolers that they would use to pack vaccine in specific coolers that have been pre-chilled at the health department. So those have been brought in the van. And then one of the things when we found actually music is important for confidentiality. When it's a warm fall day and the van's open and people are in there getting tested and you're asking personal questions, being able to plug, some speakers and have your phone Bluetooth to them to kind of drown out the private conversation and create a bit more of a festive atmosphere has been nice. And then we also have the capability where someone may need to charge a phone or plug a laptop in, etc.
Yeah. Great mobile clinic. Well, it's fantastic. And I totally agree with you that this is the future of public health, especially in a county as big as ours. So I would move.
Second, and is there any further public comment? Oh, this is fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and thanks to Shane.
Next up we got Shane Stack with Lolo water system and wells.
Thanks, Juan. I've got Ross Miller on too. Maybe I'll lead off here, Ross, and then you can jump in if I really muck things up. But so if you recall, gosh, I think it was earlier this summer, probably in August. Is that when we submitted that change application, Ross?
Yeah, I think it was actually September 1st when it was actually filed with the DNRC, but yeah, we were wrapping it up in late August.
Okay. So I'm assuming you can see my screen and hopefully you can kind of see that map of the Lolo system, the Lolo area.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I will zoom in, but essentially what we did is we submitted one change application for all the wells, and DNRC came back and said, well, we would like to have individual applications for the wells. And then additionally, you've got well 1, which was developed prior to the Montana Constitution in 1973. And therefore we have to go to the water court for that one. So what we are asking for today is separate change applications on these wells. So well 2 will be an amended change application from the original change application that we submitted in September. Well 3 and the emergency well will also be their own separate applications. And then there's an additional application for what I assume is additional quantity, Ross, for those. So, and just to paint this picture, if you recall, this purple area is the area where we would like to have our water rights expanded to with all of these wells. So what you see with these kind of cross-hatched area, the blue cross-hatched area is well 3. This brownish tannish is well 2, and well 1 is this yellow area. And what that means is the water rights are bound by those lines. And all we're trying to do is expand the water rights out to this purple line for all of those wells. We are not, one thing I want to make sure for those that are listening in that might be in the Lolo area, we are not trying to expand our water rights into the city of Missoula. We are not trying to connect to the city of Missoula's water system. We are not trying to coordinate with the city of Missoula at all. All this does is it expands our water rights to a location to encompass the future growth and probably the existing use in some cases of the water system. So I think that's, Ross, jump in if I've missed anything.
Shane, you just did a great job. You've pretty much explained everything. I don't know if the commissioners would like to hear any background of, kind of a recap. We've started working on this project in 2018. And we've had a lot of success and got a lot of work done between now and then. So if you'd like a recap, I can give you one. If the county commission is just ready to move forward, I just got a good summary from Shane.
I just want to be clear, Shane, are you now or have you ever been part of the city of Missoula? Admit it now. We have evidence, Shane. I'm joking. I'm totally, it was a Joe McCarthy reference. Probably no one here gets that but me and Ross. Great work thinking about the future. That's what this is. And 20 years will happen before we know it. And the new folks who live here will have water in part thanks to the good work you guys are doing here today. So thanks a lot for that.
And then I just had a quick question. So the expanded area will be all of what, I mean, up for,
Purple,
yeah, a different wells, or what's the hash mark gonna look like in the expanded area? Or is it well 3? What am I trying to say? Just multiple wells will move into this area and they will serve the expansion.
Yeah, so one, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Ross, but the whole idea and the intent is to make sure that every one of the wells that we have are bound by that new purple region, right? So instead of having 3 separate wells with 3 separate areas, they'll all cover that one area.
Correct,
Okay,
correct. Yeah,
so that'll be our
Lolo's,
service area,
right.
great, thank you.
which is given the influx of people moving to Western Montana and specifically to Lolo, this is planning for the future. We will have water to meet those folks' needs.
Exactly, exactly. Lolo is incredibly fortunate. It's served by 3 primary wells and a 4th small backup well. The 3 primary wells are extremely highly producing and highly productive wells, just as a function of an extremely productive aquifer along the Bitterroot River that connects into the greater Missoula aquifer. And that aquifer also kind of extends up Lolo Creek a little ways as well. So we've got 2 wells quite, in the proximity of the Bitterroot River. Those are wells number 1 and 2, the first ones that were drilled. And then a 3rd well that we went up Lolo Creek a little bit just to get some separation, kind of some protection. So if there was ever like say a contamination event or whatnot, that not all 3 wells would be subject to the same kind of groundwater regime. But they're all 3 incredibly highly productive wells because of the productive aquifer, and they were drilled in a very large diameter manner with the intent that they would serve large populations into the future. So anyways, so we're not looking at new wells here. We're just looking at expanding the place of use where the current wells are. So basically, to serve a greater outlying area, what Lolo needs is the legal right to do so and pipes. As of right now, it doesn't need new wells or more wells. It needs more pipes.
Thank you for that clarification.
And a legal boundary.
And a boundary.
Yeah, and a legal boundary.
So are you good?
I am, yeah. Did you already make a motion?
No, I was about to,
Oh,
but
sorry.
I will wait my turn.
No, go.
Okay, all right, I would request the board approve the chair to sign the change applications. Lolo water
Great.
system.
Great, really appreciate that. And just as for logistics, I've got the 4 packets ready to file right now with DNRC. So all I'm waiting for is the signature pages. So just logistically, how do you have any idea when I get the signature pages? I presume they'd be conveyed to me electronically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You.
We're looking at Ann.
We're looking at Ann.
I'm
So-
checking with Shane and Annie, because I think if electronic signature is acceptable, Shane, then I'm sure Annie can get it to you pretty quickly.
Yes, I will
Thank
submit
you.
those for signature in a packet today, and then we do have to gather everybody's signatures, so I would hope today or tomorrow we'd have it back, Ross.
Great, awesome. That and so I presume I'd get those via email or
Yeah, we should be able to get them to you.
Yes.
okay.
now, Ross.
Great, perfect. So I'll get those filed as soon as we get them. Might add in a little bit that this change in process that DNRC wants us to do is actually the likely outcome of it will be to speed up the end game of the whole process by quite a few months.
Great.
So there's not really a downside for the county. There, as an attorney, there's a downside for me. I don't quite get the precedent that I wanted. Because what DNRC is doing is kind of kicking the can down the road to avoid there's a discrepancy between DNRC's administrative rules and the state of municipal water law in Montana right now because of a Supreme Court decision in 2017, the City of Helena decision. And DNRC's rules haven't kept up with that change in the law in 2017. So what DNRC is doing is kind of trying to get Lolo's applications taken care of and addressed without setting a precedent that essentially overturns their administrative rule. That's essentially what's going on here. And it's going to result in a faster process for these change applications.
Great.
I think we like that result.
Yeah.
Well, I
So we have-
second your motion.
All right.
Is there any further comment? Okay, all in favor?
All
Aye.
right.
Thank
Great.
you, Rob.
Ross.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
Okay, item number 3, Ann Hughes and Bradley Seaman.
Yeah.
Elections.
All right, commissioners. Well, thank you. Before you today, I've got a slate of different resolutions, all for cancellation of special district elections, also electing those whom have filed by acclamation. And so we have multiple different special districts in Missoula County. The candidate filing period for them is a little bit earlier in the month. And then after closing, we have elections which had the number of candidates filed equal to or less than the number of positions open. So we're canceling all but 2 special district elections for the upcoming May 3rd special district election. We will have elections for Frenchtown Fire District as well as Seeley Lake Fire District. But each of our other special districts, fire districts, water sewer districts, or community councils have either had vacancies or enough candidates who filed to elect them by acclamation. So we can either go through each of the resolutions individually and discuss the candidates and the vacancies, or we can present them each as a slate to go through and just accept each of the resolutions to appoint them all together.
Great.
Slate.
The slate of them.
Thank you.
And so perfect. Yep. Wanted to provide you each of those different options as we came through. For this, what this would do is it would cancel all of the special district elections and elect those candidates who have filed by the deadline by acclamation. And then both the Frenchtown Fire District, Rural Fire District, and Seeley Lake Rural Fire District will be on the ballot for the upcoming May 3rd election. And so this is our administrative task of going through and electing them all by acclamation. The next steps that we take place from here are we will issue them a certificate of election by acclamation after these resolutions are signed, work with the boards to send out updated oaths of office so that starting on June 1st, they can each be sworn in for their new positions. With this, it did include the alternate positions for Bonner and, I'm sorry, I hope it was Bonner, and the Lolo community councils, which had added in the new alternate positions in there.
I don't have it on my phone, but it's fine. Yeah. It's in the packet and I can't open my packet.
Oh,
Nope, it was definitely for Bonner and Lolo. I just opened them up, but
Oh,
then I
thank
have
you,
it
thank
individually
you.
here too.
Great.
And so that does fill in those different vacancies for the alternates, and then also open up any other remaining vacancies would go through the appointment process, and it would serve out the remainder of the term till their next regularly scheduled election for that term.
Great. Thank you. Thumbs up from Ann.
thumbs up from Ann. Good job, Bradley.
Are you ready for a motion?
I am ready for
Okay.
a motion.
I would request the board sign the resolutions canceling the 2022 special district elections and elect candidates by acclamation.
Second that. Any further public comment? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley.
Yep, and thank you. Also want to give a big hands off to Annie, who really helped us with getting these all. It's been a constant process of updating the way that we present these resolutions, the way that we get them in for our packets. And I think we've come up with a great process. So in 2023, when we do this, it should be even better.
It'll be better next year, but yeah, big thanks to your help, Annie, on this one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Kayla and the Stepping Stones.
Yes, hi, good morning. So if this is okay with the board, I would like to combine items 4, 6, and 7, as it all relates to the same contract amendment process for the alcohol tax fund, and then present number 5 separately, as it is slightly different than the other 3.
Great.
Okay, great. So as you may remember, the Missoula County receives money from DPHHS for the sale of alcohol, so we call it the Alcohol Tax Fund. And we usually receive 3 installments throughout the year, but sometimes we receive a 4th installment based off of estimates from DPHHS for the following fiscal year. So the money that I'm speaking about right now is for money that was used in FY21, but we just received payment in FY22. This installment, this 4th and final payment for FY21 is quite large. It actually is $385,240, which is a significant amount higher than what we have received in previous years. And just to give you a sense of this, in FY21, it was $154,000 and some, but then in FY20, we only received $34,000. So it is quite significant, and it just goes to show that
Alcohol consumption.
Is that, yeah, Kayla, is that pandemic alcohol consumption? Is that what we were looking at?
yeah, that's what everyone has been contributing it to. And so it is really important that the money that we receive from the sale of alcohol goes towards the prevention and treatment of substance abuse. So this fund is really important. So with this, anyone who received money in FY21 is eligible to receive this additional payment. And so for this round, it's Stepping Stones, Behavioral Health, Western Montana Mental Health, and Open Aid Alliance. And the money that they'll receive is based off of their distribution amount that they received in FY21. And you can see what their final award amount will be in each item, and I can go into those details if you would like me to. But all of the services that they're providing either go towards prevention efforts, so either substance use disorder assessments, after school programs like Flagship, or peer support in outpatient treatment services.
Great.
Yeah, so that's it for those contract amendments.
Oh, this is
It's wonderful.
great work.
Yeah, I would move, we approve items 4, 6, and 7.
Second, is there any further comment? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for all
you.
your work on this complex stuff.
And item number 5, all
Yes.
nations.
So this is also a little tricky. So All Nations Health Center did not receive money in FY22, but they did receive funding in FY21. So when we did receive that large installment for the final payment in FY21, they were also eligible to receive funding, but I can't do a contract amendment because we don't have a current contract in place. So the contract with All Nation is just a standard grant agreement that we've used in previous ATF recipients. And so they will receive $103,997.49. And they are really focusing on co-occurring substance use disorders, so with the mental health piece of it, and they really lean on the tradition and culture of American Indians to help that population receive the best treatment for them. And this will run through June 30, 2022.
Oh, it's coming up. Yeah. thank
Yes.
you.
All right, I would move, we approve item 6. 5, sorry.
5.
Second, any further comment? Thank you so much. All
Yeah.
in favor? Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Okay, we're moving on to correspondence. Is Jason Emery on?
Let's see him.
We have a question about some internet, or sorry, what is the charter
Oh, yeah, a letter of support.
for, yeah,
Yeah, we're coordinating on it. It'll get to you.
okay, never mind. Okay, thank you. Any correspondence? Discussion items, we got options and timeline for updating the local hazard mitigation plan. I wonder who's gonna talk about
Sounds, yeah.
that.
Only one.
mystery.
There's only one person.
Good morning, commissioners.
Right.
So what I wanted to do today is just to kind of brief you a little bit on some options that we have for updating our local hazard mitigation plan, which we have in the past referred to as our pre-disaster mitigation plan, or our PDM. And first, I want to just kind of set the stage as to why we have these plans and the functions that they serve, aside from kind of the obvious namesake. We are required to have an updated pre-disaster mitigation plan, or now a local hazard mitigation plan, in order to be eligible for FEMA hazard mitigation funding for addressing those hazards. And so having that plan is an exercise of going through all of our other kind of plans that we have. So our zoning plans, our development plans, our long range plans for infrastructure, those kinds of things, but then also doing kind of a deep dive and profiling those natural threats and natural hazards that we are susceptible to based on our geographic location, and some of the unique features that we have in Western Montana generally, and Missoula County specifically. And so we have to do this update every 5 years in order to stay current, and our plan has to be not only kind of approved through resolution of elected officials at the county and the city, but also has to be approved by the state, and then has to be approved by FEMA Region 8. And so it's not a huge undertaking, in that there is traditionally been money available, ironically, through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program to update our hazard mitigation plans to be eligible for hazard mitigation grant funding. So it's kind of this circle. So there's traditionally been money available in a 75-25 cost share match that locally we have to come up with 25% of the cost of updating the plans. In 2017, when we last updated our plan, the total cost for our plan that was inclusive of the city of Missoula and Missoula County was about $22,000 that we paid to a contractor, and we were only responsible for that 25% of that. 5 years later, costs have gone up a little bit, but they haven't gone up substantially. The important thing here is that when we would have traditionally kind of engaged with the state to access the grant funding to begin our update process, we were in the middle of COVID. And it's a, convenient excuse for absolutely everything, right? But it is what it is. And so now, as we're kind of getting back to some of our regular business, and we are attempting to kind of in earnest start our update process, the state has also changed a couple things. And the state has kind of looked at the landscape across all of the jurisdictions in Montana. And many small jurisdictions have a hard time keeping their plans updated. There's no penalty necessarily for, the FEMA police doesn't come in and say, you need to have an updated plan. The consequence is that they just can't receive mitigation funding. And as we've seen more and more mitigation funds come into the state, with less and less jurisdictions eligible to receive that, they're turning back a lot of money. And so the state has decided to kind of take this work on in some ways. And they have taken what has traditionally been available for that local mitigation plan update money in this particular space and time. And they've hired a contracting firm to do what they're calling regional mitigation plans. And that makes a lot of sense in some ways, because when you start looking at the state, the hazards that affect Yellowstone County are very similar to the hazards that affect Carbon County. And in Western Montana, the hazards that affect Missoula County are very similar to the hazards that affect Ravalli County. And so they've taken this regionalization approach, and they've divided the state into 3 regions: a central region, a western region, and an eastern region. And the scope of work in order to do these regional plans is pretty massive. And so they have kind of phased how these projects, how these plans will be updated based on what they anticipate will be the workload. So they're starting in the central district. They have just started that process just now. Western District will be in phase 2, which Missoula County is part of. And then finally, the Eastern District in phase 3. What they're proposing to do is the state will assume the cost because they've accessed that traditional planning funds that is available through FEMA. And then the state is going to take care of the match component. So that's an advantage, right? If we were to decide to go into this regional plan, we would have no financial obligation to do so. There are so many unknowns with how this is going to look in that the our plan, just for example, is, oh, hold it up. It's a great big thick binder,
Oh,
right?
my God.
Where we have detailed information on all of our hazards, all of our history of events and incidents and impact, so that it helps us profile those hazards in a way that makes sense for us locally, so that for my office specifically, but also for other offices and agencies, that we know where to prioritize our efforts when we talk about mitigation and preparing for response. And so it probably is a shock to no one that our number one hazard is wildfire, followed closely by flooding and some other things that are probably not too surprising to folks. But what that does is that then when we go to seek funding for projects, it becomes a validation because we have locally prioritized it, but we can back up that prioritization with kind of that scientific data and background that makes it all that more compelling of a project to do. So what is unknown is in this regional approach, if our kind of local autonomy and local prioritization is going to get watered down in some way, and that Missoula becomes a footnote or at best a chapter or a section of a mega plan that we might not have as much influence on as we would otherwise if we had done kind of the traditional local plan ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Although but the regional priorities would still be Missoula County's regional priority. Like fire is.
I mean,
Fire is fire, right? Yeah, but
yeah.
if we think about it in terms of, you know, some of the goals and objectives that Missoula County has really kind of tried to highlight around climate resiliency and climate change may not be as predominant as we otherwise would like them to be in a regional plan, is if we had done it locally ourselves.
We just need to have our plan be the regional plan. You've done all the work already, Adrian, for the entire region.
So I guess what I'm not asking you to make a decision today. I'm just trying to kind of paint the landscape of some of the decision space that we're in, which we will come back to you at some near future date with a recommendation, because what the state has said is that they are asking each jurisdiction, and when they say jurisdiction, it's every municipality and every county in the Western region to sign a notice of intent of, are we going to adopt the regional plan process and tag on essentially to that, or are we going to opt out of the regional plan process? And as I said before, both have consequences, both have pros, both have cons. The biggest advantage to signing on to the regional plan is that we don't have to put forth any capital financial assets in order to do it. We just have to put forth the manpower to kind of gather the data and participate in the public process of getting those regional plans for Missoula County's annex chapter, whatever it's going to be, compiled into that plan. So it's more of just people time, no financial resources needed to do that. The disadvantage to adhering to the regional plan is that there's no continued funding for it. And so in 5 years, we run the risk of the state saying, we don't have money to do this again. And at that point, then we would have to start back at ground zero to write a local hazard mitigation plan for Missoula County rather than just doing an update, because we would not be able to kind of just dissect that regional plan and say, oh, here's our plan, if that makes sense.
Adrian, if we were to do our own plan, not do the regional plan, does that make cooperation with Ravalli County or Mineral County more difficult than if we were involved in the regional plan?
No, and in fact, Mineral County is one of those smaller jurisdictions that hasn't updated their plan in the last 2 cycles. So their plan, they've just not been able to locally find the funding or the bandwidth and capacity to do it. And they haven't really been taking, they haven't noticed a huge disadvantage to not taking advantage of mitigation funding. And so it hasn't been compelling for them to do it. Ravalli County, on the other hand, is in these same conversations with their elected officials about, well, what's the best way to go? We have traditionally done our update, our local updates with Ravalli County in conjunction with Ravalli County, and that we jointly hire the same contractor. We do a joint RFP to get that contractor because it's just the economy of scale in looking at hazards through a same lens. So the other kind of risk that is out there with the regional plans, as I see it, is that we're going to be working with a contractor, or we would be working with a contractor that doesn't work for us, right? That we didn't hire, and part of, through my experience in updating these plans, part of that local prioritization is being able to help that contractor understand and see the data with an eye of what's important for us, not only politically important, but also where we have our priorities based on where we think our greatest hazards are. The data is the data, and it's always going to be there, but there are other factors that go into profiling what are our top hazards and what are our priorities going to be specific to mitigation plans and mitigation projects. So we might lose a little bit of that in that regional approach. So if we decided to say we're not going to participate and we wanted to go it alone, there is funding available at the state through a new hazard mitigation grant program from COVID, which does have some planning funds in there available to it. We would have to come up with a 25% match, which shouldn't be too burdensome. It's something that we traditionally would just budget for out of our normal budget anyway in this 5-year cycle. I think that we would be able to move quicker than the regional plan updates. And the timeline is important here because our plan is going to expire likely well before the regional plans get adopted. And that's because in order for the plan to be considered adopted and final, all of the jurisdictions have to essentially adopt it through resolution. And so if you think about the logistics of that, with every municipality and every county having to go through the public process of adopting even just their annex, but now just the whole plan for the regional district, no one knows how long that's going to take. But we all think it's going to be a pretty big undertaking just to get that piece done, not let alone the plan written and all of those local voices heard in the process. So I think we can move faster by doing it ourselves, not without the consequence of having to come up with some money to do it. But the important thing there is once our plan is expired, we essentially get benched from being able to receive any new mitigation funding. And so when I talk about the mitigation funding, I'll bring up a couple examples of projects that we have ongoing right now, which we can, those have been awarded, so those aren't in jeopardy, but any new projects would become in jeopardy and that we wouldn't be able to receive award for those projects until our plan was updated and approved. So Missoula Electric Co-op has applied for a BRIC grant, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant. So that application is in process now to bury a large section of power lines in the Rock Creek drainage to mitigate potential for wildfire and prolonged power outages to that community up in that area. That project looks like it's probably going to get funded, and if it does and our plan is expired, they would have to wait until our plan was approved and updated until they could receive that money and begin that project work. Another one is the University of Montana has applied for BRIC funding, again, that's Building Resilient Infrastructures and Communities, to supplement some of the project scope of their microgrid project that they're working on, which could be huge for our community at large should we have prolonged power outages and those kinds of things. Having a self-generated microgrid at the University of Montana could have a lot of benefit. Additionally, our office is going to be, the application is done, we'll be submitting it for kind of continuation of our wildfire mitigation grant initiatives around creating defensible space and hazardous fuels vegetation removal on private property. That could be in jeopardy and that we might just have to sit and wait on that funding opportunity until our plan got updated. And so going it alone, so to speak, or going it just by ourselves and hiring our own contractor, coming up with that 25% match, I think would allow us to be a lot more nimble and move quicker, because we would just be doing an update to our existing plan and to include and incorporate some of those new initiatives that have come out in the last 3 to 4 years.
Adrian, I'm just reading into this a little bit and wondering if you mentioned like Mineral County not having the bandwidth or capacity. People never use those words, but to actually do this on their own. So I'm wondering from the state's perspective, given that most all of the counties in Montana are pretty small, this really makes sense because most counties are like Mineral County. So the regional approach where the folks in those counties who don't have your skills, access to those skills, don't have to worry about this. It's just taken care of for them and it'll work really well for them. But for us, it doesn't sound like a good fit. It sounds like given we have Adrian Beck and the resources, we should be quicker, more nimble, move on our own and incorporate our own values in this. And that's not to say that, that's also to acknowledge it for other places who don't have those resources. It's not the right solution. So I'm not damning one in favor of the other. It's just, this sounds like a much better fit for us.
Yeah, Judge, you said it, I couldn't say it better, in that my hat is off to the state for kind of taking this on and trying to figure out how to assist counties and in a way that makes sense for most of the jurisdictions
Right.
in the state. I will say that of the large jurisdictions, we all are the only ones who are kind of wrestling with this a little bit.
Of course.
And in conversations with some of my colleagues in Lewis and Clark County, Gallatin County, and even Ravalli County for that matter, they're kind of burgeoning on a larger jurisdiction. These are exactly some of the concerns that they have as well. In my conversations with Gallatin County, they are likely going to opt out. And, I think that provides us some opportunities in the future in that when we look to 5 years from now, Gallatin County and Missoula County will both be in the same position of needing to update our plans. And there might be an opportunity to collaborate and or share resources to get that done.
When do we have to make a decision?
The notice of intent for either tagging on or opting out is due back to the state by mid-April. And so the next time I come before you, we will come kind of with that notice of intent, asking you to take a specific action. Right now, I think that my recommendation in consultation with a couple other departments, Chris and Ann, of course, but most importantly, CAPS with Chet and Karen, because this plan does have implications for some of the initiatives and projects that they manage. Right now, we're feeling like we really should probably opt out and seek funding to go with it.
Great.
And the opting out allows the flexibility to deal with our new zoning update because our zoning update, what's the date for that? Is that gonna
Summer.
mess this up?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay,
But yes, you're right, in that it allows us to take a closer look and take a deeper dive into some of our local planning documents that really kind of inform this plan.
Good.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Well, we'll
So
look
stay tuned.
forward
Yeah,
to-
I just wanted the opportunity to kind of give you the background in the discussion
Yeah,
forum
thank
rather
you.
than.
So glad that you did. It was
Yeah.
really good discussion. I feel like
Yeah.
I learned a ton and we look forward to your return with the recommendation.
All right, thank you so much.
Good job, well
Yeah.
presented.
Yes, thank you.
Upcoming events and invitations.
Well, we're gonna have a birthday lunch when Dave gets back.
Great. We
There you
are.
go.
Josh's birthday is March 27th, everyone.
Another day under 6. Right.
Oh, okay. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.